Welcome back, everyone. We're diving into a case today that I think will really stick with you. It's the story of Robert Hansen.
Ah, yeah, the butcher baker.
That's the one, from Anchorage, Alaska.
Right.
He was a seemingly ordinary man who led a really terrifying double life.
Mm.
And he ended up claiming the lives of at least 17 women.
At least 17.
Mm.
Probably more.
You know, you hear Baker and you think, what? But that's kind of what makes this story so chilling.
Yeah. Total contrast. Like,
Yeah.
normal facade. Everyday guy.
Yeah.
But a monster hiding underneath.
Exactly. And that's what we're going to explore today. This unsettling duality of Robert Hansen.
This is one of those cases that really gets at the idea that evil can hide in plain sight,
Absolutely.
Because on the surface, he was a respected businessman, family man, even like a record-setting hunter.
Right.
But, under that, there was this deeply disturbed individual capable of these horrific acts.
And it wasn't a sudden snap either. The sources we've looked at, they paint a picture of a really troubled childhood. Bullying, a strained relationship with his dad, and this like deep-seated insecurity that it seems like just festered over time. And I'm curious, do you think that difficult upbringing, could that be one of the keys to understanding his later crimes?
Oh, absolutely. When you look at the psychology of serial killers, early trauma, social isolation, that comes up a lot. It's almost like they're trying to get back this sense of power.
Control, yeah.
The control that they didn't have earlier on, like, in their younger years. And for Hansen, he had this early fascination with hunting, archery.
Right.
At first, those things, they probably gave him, a sense of mastery.
Yeah, like he was good at something.
Right. But over time, those things can become really warped. And they turned into tools that he used to carry out these horrific acts.
Yeah, it's like those hobbies became a training ground for something much darker. It's scary to think about how those everyday interests, they can take such a sinister turn.
Absolutely.
And what's even more unsettling, his descent into darkness wasn't, this sudden thing.
Right.
It was gradual.
Yeah.
Started with, petty crimes, even arson. And as he got away with more, it just escalated.
That's classic, that gradual escalation.
Yeah.
You see it in a lot of serial killer cases. It's like they test boundaries,
That's the limits.
see how far they can go before they get caught.
Right.
And, in Hansen's case, if there had been early intervention, who knows? It might have changed everything.
It's so sad to think about those missed opportunities. It's like those early warning signs, nobody really saw them or they weren't taken seriously. And then you have this turning point. His move to Alaska, it's like he was trying for a fresh start, reinvent himself. He became like this respected member of the community. How could someone compartmentalize their life like that?
It really is a chilling example of how deceiving appearances can be.
Yeah.
Because Hansen, he was meticulous and
Yeah.
calculated. He built up this image, this whole persona, hardworking baker, devoted husband.
Right.
But all the while, he's leading this secret life, this horrifying secret life.
It's hard to wrap your mind around it. Maintaining that kind of a facade for years. And all along, his victims, so often they were the most vulnerable.
Right.
The ones whose disappearances, maybe wouldn't be noticed right away.
Yeah, sex workers,
They-
people living on the margins.
Yeah.
That's a common thread with a lot of serial killers. They target people they think won't be missed as quickly.
So their absence wouldn't raise any immediate alarms.
Right. And that's how Hansen got away with it for so long.
It's awful.
Yeah.
Let's talk about his modus operandi. It was almost ritualistic. He'd abduct these women, drive them to these incredibly remote locations,
Out in the Alaskan wilderness.
and then he'd hunt them.
A Ruger Mini 14 rifle, hunting knife,
I've read about those.
and, the Alaskan wilderness. That was his hunting ground.
Right.
So vast, so unforgiving. It's hard to even imagine what those women must have gone through.
Being chased through that kind of landscape,
Yeah.
just terrifying.
Yeah.
One of the sources we looked at, it highlights the case of Celia Van Zanten. She died back in 1971, and Hansen always denied having anything to do with it.
Right.
But her death, it has some really eerie similarities to his later crimes, the ones that we know he committed.
It's like we're seeing the early stages of his dark side, like a
Yeah.
glimpse of what was to come.
Yeah, like the darkness was already there, taking root.
Right. Because a lot of serial killers, they don't just jump into their most heinous acts right away.
It's a progression.
Yeah. Their methods, they kind of evolve. They refine them.
Right.
So in Celia's case, those similarities, it suggests that, his impulses, those dark impulses, they were already there.
He was practicing. testing things out.
Exactly.
And tragically, for years, bodies kept turning up
Yeah.
in these remote areas.
Yeah.
And each one, they had the evidence of his brutality. You can just imagine that fear and anchorage.
Yeah.
When the realization hit that a predator was among them.
Right under their noses.
It really is a chilling thought that this guy operated undetected for so long. But, there's this glimmer of hope in all of this darkness.
Yeah, Cindy Paulson.
Right, a 17-year-old who managed to escape.
Wow.
And her story, it's pivotal in bringing Hansen down.
It really is. Such resilience and courage. She went through so much.
Abducted.
Yeah.
Chained. The terror she must have felt. It's almost unimaginable.
It's hard to fathom. But she never gave up. Never lost hope. She fought back, found a way to escape. And then what she did next, that's what really changed everything.
She went to the police.
Right. She reported Hansen. Gave the authorities all those crucial details.
Her testimony was so important. At that point, they had a suspect.
Right. Thanks to the FBI and that criminal psychologist, they had a profile.
But they needed, they needed more.
Yeah, they needed that final piece to really make the case.
And Cindy gave it to them. She
described Hansen, his vehicle, his house. Everything matched up perfectly with that FBI profile.
It was a major breakthrough.
It was.
And then, they searched Hansen's property.
Yeah.
And that's when they found all that physical evidence.
Mm-hmm.
The jewelry.
Belonging to some of the
firearms. And, of course, the map.
Oh, that map.
Chilling.
Marked with the burial sites, like something out of a horror movie.
It's hard to believe that's real.
Each one of those marks, a life lost, a family left behind to grieve.
That map, that was the turning point. It backed up Cindy's story.
And gave investigators a literal roadmap to uncovering the full extent of his crimes.
Yeah, it showed just how meticulous Hansen was. Like, he was documenting it all, almost keeping score.
Right.
The level of premeditation it's terrifying. But thankfully, thanks to Cindy's bravery and all that hard work from law enforcement, they caught him.
The butcher baker.
The man who terrorized Anchorage for over a decade. He was finally held accountable.
461 years without parole.
He would never hurt anyone again.
It was a victory for justice, but a bittersweet one, because it brought some closure. But it could never truly erase the pain, the suffering that he caused.
No, it couldn't. Hansen died in prison in 2014. The end of a very dark chapter in Alaskan history. But his case, the stories of his victims, they stay with you. They remind us that darkness can exist anywhere, even in the most peaceful places.
It's a stark reminder. We have vulnerable people in our society, and sometimes systems fail. They fail to protect them, and that allows predators like Hansen to operate for far too long.
It's a case that people are still fascinated by, horrified by.
No.
It forces us to confront some really uncomfortable truths about the nature of evil and the human capacity for deception. So, we've gone deep into this case, this incredibly disturbing case. What are your final thoughts? What can we learn from the story of Robert Hansen as individuals, as a society?
I think it underscores how important vigilance is. Awareness.
Yeah.
We have to pay attention to the warning signs,
right.
Support vulnerable populations, and we have to demand more from our justice system. We can't afford to be complacent.
No.
We can't just assume that this kind of horror couldn't happen in our own communities because, Hansen's case proves that it can. Evil hides in plain sight. It could be right next door.
You're right. And we can't always judge a book by its cover.
Hansen, he was respected. No one had any idea what he was truly capable of. I think that's one of the most unsettling things about this case.
Yeah.
Evil can wear a friendly face. And that makes it so much harder to detect.
It really does. It makes you think, about the nature of evil itself. Can we ever really understand what motivates someone like Hansen? Or is it better to just focus on prevention, on stopping these tragedies from happening in the first place? It's a tough question.
It is. It's complex. There are no easy answers.
No. And I think it's something that, I hope our listeners will keep thinking about even after this episode is over.
Mm-hmm.
Because even the most disturbing cases, they can teach us valuable lessons. About ourselves, about the world around us.
Right.
They can make us more vigilant, more compassionate, more determined to build a society where these horrors don't happen.
Exactly. Maybe that's the most important thing we can take away from this.
Yeah.
This renewed commitment to understanding, to prevention, and to seeking justice for all.
Well said. Thank you for joining us on this journey into the dark world of Robert Hansen, the butcher baker. We hope you found it informative.
Yeah.
And thought-provoking. Until next time, keep exploring, Keep questioning, keep diving deep. It's a point that, really stays with you. This idea that someone so cruel, so calculated, could just blend in like a normal person. And it makes you wonder, who can you really trust?
It definitely makes you question your assumptions
Yeah.
about people. And it makes you think about community. Did anyone see any red flags? Could something have been done sooner?
Yeah, that's such a good point. We talked about, Hansen's childhood, his crimes escalating. But what about the people around him? The community? Did his seemingly normal life, did that help him hide in plain sight for so long?
It's possible. I mean, sometimes when someone is so respected, so ingrained in the community, people might not want to see the bad stuff. Or they explain it away, like, oh, that's not like him.
Like a collective blind spot.
Yeah, exactly.
That makes you think.
It's
About how important it is to pay attention, to trust your gut, that something feels off. Because we saw what happened when those signs were ignored.
Yeah. The consequences were devastating. And it shows how important it is to create a culture where people can speak up.
Right.
Where you don't feel weird about reporting something suspicious. Because it's not about being nosy. It's about, it's about protecting each other. It's about responsibility.
We focused a lot on the darkness of this case. But there is a kind of a hopeful element to it.
Cindy Paulson.
Right. Her courage, the fact that she refused to just be another victim. That's what led to Hansen's arrest.
Her story is incredible, even after everything she went through. The terror. She found a way to escape, and then she reported him. She was so brave.
Her actions, they didn't just save her own life. They stopped him from hurting anyone else.
Right.
It's a powerful reminder that even when things are really bad, really dark, there's still hope. There's always the chance to fight back.
Absolutely.
And it brings us back to what we were talking about before, about community. Because ultimately, it was someone in that community, Cindy Paulson, who put an end to this.
That's important to remember. We have to look out for each other, be vigilant, and, build communities where everyone feels safe, everyone feels supported.
I agree. It's a message that goes way beyond this one case. It's about hope and the importance of working together to stand up to evil.
And to protect each other.
Well said. Thank you for joining us on this journey. It's been a deep dive into a really dark place.
Yeah.
But also a look at the strength of the human spirit.
It has.
We hope you learned something. That it made you think. And until next time, keep exploring, keep asking questions, keep diving deep.